Hello and welcome to the DC United Kingdom podcast. We are live here on YouTube. Hopefully you are joining in. If not, and you are listening to this on your podcast, well, thank you for tuning in. I'm here with James Lambert, who is to this side of me. I've actually got it right first time. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Dealing with the heat here in DC, and obviously the results the last couple of weeks. But overall, we're doing well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange time. I know, obviously, apart from the COVID, I mean, that's just become kind of normal now. But
Yeah.
this tournament, we're obviously out now. We've had a chance to sleep on it. I'm still feeling a bit sore over it. How are you feeling over it?
I'm the same way. I don't think it has gotten better with distance. I've picked myself up and watched a few other matches since then. I know that the timing is tough for you, so I don't know how much of the other matches you've been able to watch in the tournament. But I think the contrast between United's performance and also, frankly, lack of fight, when that's the one thing we've been able to claim for this team for a long time, has been very disappointing when contrasted with a lot of other teams out there.
Yeah, and that was the thing that I was just desperate for the guys to do when I was watching it. Was it yesterday? I've lost track of time now.
2 days ago. Tuesday.
Is it 2 days? If it doesn't,
Well, I know
it's been a long 2 days.
Yeah.
And that's what I was just really, really wanting to see, was that fight. And I wouldn't mind if we got beat, as long as we showed that bit of fight. And we just didn't see it. I don't know whether it was because of the heat, and obviously they're going to be drained because I think they played, was it 3 games in 9 days, I think it was in the end?
Sure.
So mentally they're going to be a bit tired, but it was just massively frustrating.
Yes. The player usage was massively frustrating. The overall approach was frustrating. It was like watching the worst of DC United on the road for the last decade, where we'd go in with an almost give up mindset, and if we could steal it 1-0, great, but otherwise we were just going to try to cancel the game. And it's tough football to watch, very tough football to watch. Because these games have been on national TV. I've had friends that are kind of casual, at least casual followers of MLS, text me during matches, and like, are they usually so bad? Because they're watching, trying it out. And I mean, unfortunately, it's a terrible advertisement for the club in wanting to bring people in. Is these are people that live here in DC and want to check it out, and they're seeing some really negative football, and it's sad to see.
No, absolutely. And you just think, you look across the whole tournament, it has been a bit of a strange tournament, because you've had Orlando winning, and that never happens. And then you've had Cincinnati beating the Red Bulls. That was awesome.
And I'm thrilled about that. But frankly, going into this season, I mean, if you ask me, I thought Atlanta, for example, Atlanta and the Red Bulls were going to have very tough seasons. Atlanta, after Joseph goes down, he's their talismanic player, and they don't have any confidence in Frank de Boer. You can see it when they play. They don't know what to do, and the Red Bulls have not made any moves. They've gotten weaker talent-wise, and I mean, I like Chris Armas, but he's weaker coach than Jesse Marsch, and they were kind of also set up to struggle to a certain extent. And I'm afraid, yes, I don't like the tactics, and I don't like not seeing a lot of the fight, but this team was also woefully thin, and in a tournament like this, it shows up. It shows up quickly, and we didn't even use the talented players we have in any great number. So
and you look at the fact that we were going into this tournament without Paul Arriola, but we didn't really have much of a replacement. I mean, granted, Gressel was the direct replacement, but I think we signed him primarily to play either at wing back or right back. And realistically, you've got Segura up there, who had a good few minutes. That was about it. And I think our roster when we go into the tournament, we only had 23 players and then 2 strikers.
Right. Sorga and Kamara. Kamara gets injured. And the setup of the tournament is not good, right? Like we went from a very good schedule to a very bad schedule quickly because of the teams being eliminated. We had our first match moved twice. So far, second match was on 4 days rest, and New England had 7.
Yep.
That's going to be a bad situation, but it's exacerbated by being thin. And while we, quote, use the subs, I think we saw the same issue with Ben where before the tournament, he's talking about using the young players, and really only Paredes got real minutes.
Yeah. And
it's frustrating to me in a tournament where you need bodies and you need legs, and if nothing else, you can get the young players some run and see what they've got that we're not seeing Moses Naaman, and we're not seeing Yao for 60, 70 minutes at least. Like, what?
Yeah.
What is the? We know what I always say. We know what we're going to get from Segura. All right, he is a spot starter, and when we use him and not that way, and we're unwilling to take a chance on youth, like again, most of the successful teams have done in this tournament. It's just another indictment of the process here at our club.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it looked like we weren't willing to experiment at all. And I know these group games are going towards the season standings, but it felt like this was the time to give things a go and change it up, be a bit different.
And then frankly, are we going to have the rest of the season? I mean, they claim, but I think there's a decent chance that this is all the MLS will see this year, and it didn't look like that was taken into consideration in terms of like, hey, let's just lay it out there and go all out. But it comes back to me with lack of team structure and lack of system.
Yeah.
When you lose players and players get injured, it is easier to bring in young players for their debuts or for like early play when they know their defined role, when you're not tinkering around all the time, when they know exactly how they're supposed to play because they've trained that way for years. And we don't have that. Therefore, plugging in young players is harder, and we don't put them in positions to succeed. And it's just ugly. We expect the players to figure it out for themselves. And we don't have Wayne Rooney caliber players who are capable of figuring it out for themselves. I'm sure he likes, lack of managerial intervention. I think he said so. But when you're dealing with your average MLS starter, it handicaps them. It really does.
Mm-hmm. It's a difficult one to try and find some kind of positive from this whole tournament for us, but there has been one, and that has been Kevin Paredes, because whenever he's come on, he's brought this energy to the side where he's willing to chase that ball down. He gets the ball, he's willing to attack, and it was great to see how after the first match I had a few messages come through on Twitter just saying how good he was, and this is coming from people who aren't DC United fans. That's my one. It's not many, but that's my positive from this whole tournament. That I agree.
Paredes looked very good because for me, it's more than just. I mean, yes, I think he was the only guy, especially the last match at the end. It looked like he was showing fight, but more than fight, he was getting in good positions, right? Yes, the timing didn't always come off. Yes, he had the best chance in the Montreal match, and it was a keeper made a very good stop on his shot, but he was continually turning up in good positions, and not the same positions, which was even more interesting to me. Sometimes he'd turn up in the center, sometimes he'd get out wide. His movement was very strong, and at his age, that's the kind of the first step. A final product, it always will take a while, but when you're starting to show that you can connect and turn up in good positions, it bodes well for the future for him.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And I do wish we saw, as you said earlier, Nyman and Griffin Yao get those times, because I think Yao only got his time in that game against Montreal, and it was too little, too late. I think it was, what was it, 10 minutes max?
10 minutes, yeah. When you see how other teams have handled subs and have used the chance to kind of bring on 4 players at the 60-minute mark and completely change the turn of the match. I mean, obviously, Higuain coming off the bench was very impactful for us.
Yeah,
that's great to see. He's kind of a Dave Casper special, right? Like, it's picking it off where nobody else kind of saw it and getting some benefit out. That's excellent, but it's kind of not a substitute for what we struggle with, which is getting your best players into situations where they succeed.
Yeah.
We saw very little from Gressel and very little from Flores in this tournament, and we don't have an idea of how to, put them in the dangerous positions, put them where they're most dangerous. We're making them figure it out themselves, unfortunately, and it looks bad. Flores, we signed this guy out of Mexico to run at defenders. I mean, that's his skill, and we're not getting him out. I don't care where he starts the match. I don't care if he starts the center on the team sheet. We're not getting him in any situations where he's getting isolated on one defender, especially out wide. And without doing that, we're just wasting the money we spend on that player by expecting him to figure out other ways to help us.
Yeah, there's got to be some change for me in both the formation and the style of play that we're currently playing. It just seems that Benz has gotten used to a particular style, and you look at the best managers, they always have a tactic of like 2 or 3, and they're willing to adapt depending on the situation. And you look, there was the FA Cup semi-final recently, Man United Chelsea, and traditionally they'll both play with 4 at the back, but because of their respect for each other, they decided to change, and they both weirdly went with the same formation of 3-4-3.
Yeah.
And granted, Man United didn't exactly play their best, but you look at Chelsea, and they played outstanding. And that is the kind of thing that you want to see from a manager, to be able to switch it up and have that knowledge passed over to the players to know, actually, we can do this. We're not just going to go in and just randomly go, 10 minutes before kickoff, actually, we're going to play 3-4-3. I know we've not played it before, but this is what we're going to do. And we need to have that ability.
Or I'm going to argue the other side. We're either going to have the ability to be very flexible and a manager that is tactically versed enough to really, move players around match to match. Or, like, I think this is where many MLS teams have gone, is you commit to a system and you bring in players only to fit that system. And you develop players to fit that system. So, yes, you want the, quote, best players, but the talent gap in MLS is never going to be so large that one team can't beat another team on the day, right? We've seen that again and again and again.
Yeah.
Coaching and scouting are a humongous advantage. We don't make use of it. You brought up Orlando earlier. Oscar Pareja apparently in 3 months has made them look better than they've ever looked.
Yeah.
Just by being what we know him to be, which is a very competent manager, right? He's not a global superstar. He's a very competent manager that's had success in multiple stops in MLS, and he's come in and made them immediately better. It's frustrating to see us stuck in the same gear when there's plenty of examples of how to do it better.
No, absolutely. Just for those who are watching live on YouTube, if you've got any thoughts about this, what we're talking about, drop them in the chat. We'll go through it, and if you've got any questions, let us know, and we will answer them live on air. Obviously, we believe that we know better. We're armchair analysts, shall we say?
Sure.
We've both got a mutual love of a particular simulation game.
We do.
We do. We've talked quite a lot about it over this year. It is Football Manager, and to be honest, this game is one of the reasons why I support DC United and have the love for them. I know you've moved on to VRL.
I have in my current save.
I'm still at DC United. Granted, I've not actually loaded it up for a little while, but we've both had success on that game. The game itself is known to be one of the most realistic games available. You get teams using it as a proper scouting system over here in the UK. It's well ingrained over here. What formation were you using when you were playing as DC United?
I was using the 4-2-3-1. I had gone to more of a gegenpress system. The game's interesting because I do think it's incredibly realistic in a lot of ways, and as with any simulation, I think there's a lot you can actually gain in the real world. And things you can't. But with MLS, especially because of the complex rules, starting to learn how to manage the cap and some of the nuances there does allow you to kind of sandbox some of your pet theories about how to run an MLS franchise, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned earlier, like, I think one of the things that Football Manager has shown me is that, yes, like, there is no salary cap on front office. So spend about as much as you can on scouts and trainers and build that part of your organization up huge, because you can't be wrong on a signing in MLS. You can't just miss and it beat Chelsea or Real Madrid or just splash out another big signing. You have to get them right, the big ones. And no one's going to put a salary cap on scouts. So have the biggest scouting network you can. And I think the majority of clubs don't do that for operating budget reasons. But I think that they're selling themselves short. I think a scouting organization pays for itself very, very quickly.
Absolutely. You can find some absolute hidden gems. And on mine, I switch between a 4-4-2. But I still go with the gegenpress, like you do, and a 4-3-3, but with a DM and two central midfielders. And I've know about one of the players already before I started this DC United saves, and I was amazed I actually signed him, which was Caio Jorge from Brazil, and that was just something else. But eventually he goes because he's a heck of a player. Then I replaced him because my scouts found a player called Gabriel Moraes, who was just as good, and I'd never even heard of him. So you're right, build your scouting network, and you will find the right players. I think I've got 11 first team coaches now, and it's just like it's a coach per every other player at the moment. It's just. And that's where you really do see the difference, because those players, their potential, they reach that much faster, and it just becomes a lot easier. So,
and again, I think that's applicable to real life. Is that you do see some of the successful clubs like NYCFC has been able to obviously tap into the City Football Group. Right, Red Bull has tapped into the Red Bull Global Football Group scouting networks. They benefit now, not building in their own club, but they have value added from there. Seattle probably has the most advanced analytics department. Right, that has turned out well for them. If you are not, again, the game doesn't point out definite solutions, but it does point out, like, hey, here's all these check boxes. Have you hit these all? Have you hit sports science? Have you hit and if you look at your organization in real life and you realize you're not very strong or superior to 80% of the other organizations in the league in those, then you're not trying to win, frankly. I mean, you're not like really trying to be the best. You're trying to see how you can get by and make the most profit with the least outlay. And those are two different things. We've always known that to be true in sports, and that's what I think I've learned most from the game is all these other ancillary departments and how key they are to whatever formation you happen to lay out. You need that whole organization supporting.
Yeah, it's but let's move on. Let's have a little chat about the games themselves. So, as I said before we came live on air, I'm going to show some stats on the screen. So, give me 2 seconds whilst I bring that up. So, first up will be the if I can actually eventually find it. There we go. So let's just transition into that nicely. There we go. So we've got the Toronto game, and I can't see it from where I'm sat, so I'm going to move a little bit closer. So sorry on the screen, you're going to see me just zoom in quite a bit. Right. So the Toronto game, so it was just absolutely crazy. You've got 17 shots to 8 shots for DC United versus Toronto. That's just crazy. The fact that Toronto had far too many attempts on goal, and the fact that they had 7 attempts on target, which is almost as many as we had overall, is just a bit wrong. What else we had? Corners wise, we actually beat them on corners, 5-4. Yeah.
Clearly, we scored on one.
Yeah, that's true. Crosses wise, we had 19 crosses to their 12. And again, it's how we do it. Fouls wise, we committed the same amount of fouls. I'm going to talk about that in a moment, because we had 2 yellow cards, and then we had the sending off of Junior Moreno. Possession wise, though, 66 versus 34. That's the key bit there for me, is the fact that we had so little possession in that game. We just couldn't control anything, and the fact that we managed to come out with a 2-2 draw, that was the game where we showed the passion and we showed the fight.
And we got some luck. Right? I mean, Toronto's, both their center backs got injured, and now we took advantage. But both the goals came from, especially the first one, came from errors from the center back replacements. And they struggled in the last 30 minutes after Gonzalez and it wasn't Mavinga came off. And to me, it looked very much like the playoff game last year, except without extra time where we got killed at the end. Like it looked like we were outplayed in every facet, and we stole it at the death. And if you would have played another 30 minutes, we could have seen maybe the same result again. But we had come out and we weren't looking to play again. They only played after in the second half when they were down. It was great to see Higuaín show that magic. But frankly, that's not the guy that has to be teaching everybody about fire. He's a great player in MLS. Great personality, but it continually frustrates me. It looks like, again, the worst have been on the road, where he knows we're going to be in a tough situation, so it's go into a shell. The situation is not, well, what do we find our advantages? You know what? We'll fight, and if we lose, we lose. But we're going to go out and play and do our best. No, we're going to negate the game, and that was the approach throughout the tournament, but certainly in this first match, where they did not look ready in those first 45 minutes.
Yeah, it was a tricky one. Junior Moreno got sent off for those 2 bookings.
3 bookings.
Ooh, yeah. And then, should Felipe have been sent off?
I mean, I'm going to say yes. I think Moreno got 3 yellows. I think he should have been sent off earlier in the first half. Or if I was a Toronto supporter, I certainly would have been. I mean, I thought he was gone when that second tackle went in, and I would have been screaming about it if I was on the other side. And yes, I think Felipe probably twice other times in this tournament should have been sent off. I think he benefited from the referees were loath to send players off because they realized it was a tournament format and how much was at stake. And it was a bad tackle.
It really was. I'm surprised VAR didn't get involved in it.
Yeah, I think at least when I saw the post match on it, I think it's a little bit that VAR is going to judge that basically the referee saw it, right? Yeah. He awarded the card. It's in the end, it's a judgment call that like if the referee saw it and didn't make the call, VAR is really trying to aim for those errors where the referee doesn't see something. In this case, he just made that decision. I think it probably was an incorrect one, but we were lucky. We were lucky not to be down to 9 at that point and have everything over. Again, nice seeing the fight for part of the match, but it doesn't compensate for lack of game planning.
No,
and
it's one of these things where it was the opening game. It was initially delayed. Then we got to Sunday, and so like 15, 20 minutes before kickoff, it gets postponed again. Now, for me, that should have been enough to instill that fight from kickoff, because you must be absolutely livid at the other team.
We saw a post-match. I mean, there was an altercation post-match.
Yeah.
Right? And because it was clear that United was really, pissed off at Toronto for what they felt was not respecting them and not showing up, and waiting for the game to be canceled. But that didn't show up until late in the match. I just this was I saw all 3 matches, but one of the things I'm going to say that I think this is a dual problem for United. One is the actual on the field results, but also in those of us that aren't hardcore, trying to grow the product, bring more people in, make it entertaining. If you listen to tactical breakdowns, I don't know if you listen to MLS Assist, the guys that just kind of started up already in the Total Shock Show umbrella. And they're great. They go to great specifics on tactics, post-match tactical breakdowns. Those type of people that deal with really want to talk about the ins and outs of the game don't bother to talk about DC United. They hate DC United because DC United doesn't give them anything to talk about. That's a problem. Points out problem A, which is we don't have a well-drilled plan about how we want to attack and the other team and defend the other team. A and B, it turns off people. People want that discussion. They want to hear about their team in the press. They want that sort of buzz, and we don't get discussed by almost anybody following the game nationally because we're too boring and we don't give them anything to engage with. And this, it's real tough when you get to the final 2 minutes of a podcast based on all MLS, and they're like, DC United, they're gritty, which is another word for not having any idea about how to play. And that's the beginning and end of it.
Yeah. Yes. That sums it up quite nicely. We were lucky the fact that we had Wayne Rooney. Sure. And that gave everyone something to talk about the club. Because you're right, if we didn't have Wayne Rooney in those 18 months that we had him, what would we be talking about? Lucho Costa maybe having a little bit of a strop every now and again?
Well, you at least need a project.
Yeah.
I think, what we're seeing in a city like Colorado now, right? This is a club that has straight up bad ownership.
Yeah. That's nice.
But Stan Kroenke's a bad owner, and they spend very little money on their overall organization. But whatever they're doing now creates a little bit of buzz because they have a real project that seems to be putting things in place to get better. And that's something, for as exciting as the second half of 2018 was, and it was awesome. We don't have that feeling of progress. If you look at our results, it has been straight up and down every other year since Ben took over. And we don't feel like we're progressing to anything. And I get that there were extenuating circumstances for a long time, but now this is a good job. And this is, you could have the tools here to win. And it doesn't feel like we're moving forward at all. And that saps excitement.
Yeah. Right. Should we move on to the New England game?
Yeah, please.
Let's do it. Right. So the New England game, this was classed as a home tie for us. I don't know how they've decided to work this out, but there we go.
Maybe it's which scoreboard the supporters were on at the stadium when they showed us. Whether it was the central one or the, I don't know.
That's another one to talk on later, is the virtual scoreboards and the fact that over in the stage you had the Adidas logo in the center circle. That was just bizarre. But stats-wise for the New England game, we were pretty much outplayed in every important department. Shots on target, shots off target, even blocked shots, corners, crosses. The things that we won were fouls, yellow cards. It doesn't make pretty read, and the possession stats wise was quite close. It was 51-49, but again, outplayed, and we were very, very lucky with our equaliser in that match.
Sure, the equalizer again. Yeah, it's from an error. It's from an unforced error. I think is maybe the right way to put it.
Yeah.
There's always errors that are forced, from pressure, but this wasn't. And this match, I hate to say it's the quote best match for me. I think we were in the toughest situation with the rest difference.
Yeah.
And there were very few chances either way in this one. We didn't give up a lot of good looks to New England. It's not like we were living as dangerously as we were in the Toronto match.
Yeah.
But we also didn't still create anything going forward, and we lucked a result again. This is where I think you say look at the stats and we talk about the rest difference. It became most concerning to me that we didn't see more usage of the roster, especially introducing young players. We knew we got handed a tough situation with the short turnaround, yet we decided not to try to play fresh bodies. That's worrying. I mean, it's very worrying in a situation like that not to use the talent you have to try to be able to play in that situation. And it showed.
And you had, I think the main big change was the fact that Sorga was made his first start for the club, because I think Kamara picked up a quad injury, and unfortunately for Sorga, he did look out of sorts out there. And I don't know whether that's because it was such a short turnaround and the fact that it was very last minute. He just didn't look like he knew what role he was meant to play.
I agree. And Sorga's from what I have seen of him, he appears to be a target man, partly poacher, also like you need to get the man service.
Yeah, he's a proper striker.
Yeah, and if you're not playing, getting players like that service, they're going to struggle. We've seen the same kind of discussions with Adam John in Atlanta about of course he's not Joseph Martinez, but he's a player that can do a job, but you got to get him the ball in the right situations, and that wasn't happening with Sorga. One other change we saw is with Moreno going out. Right, we had Canals moved into the center again.
Yeah.
To his traditional role, and we saw both Fisher and Adoyatson at different parts of the match.
Yes, we did. I think Fisher started and then Adoyatson came on later in the game. For me, both quite impressive.
I agree. I think those were also pluses.
Yeah.
Chris coming on in both in the second and third match, I thought he played well in both matches. It was great to see him. Very quiet, but great guy. I think he's one of the really true nice guys on the roster that come through your city every once in a while. And so to see him come back from cancer and really get back to like what appears to be a competent standard, an MLS standard, was great to see here. And it was great to have Fisher back and by playing and realizing that he's not one of the best right backs in MLS, but he's certainly better than playing Paul Arriola or Russell Canals there and taking them away from other parts of the field. So that made me happy.
Yeah, and I forgot how quick Chris was.
Yeah.
He's got some pace on him.
Yeah, he had a couple recovery runs.
Yeah.
There was one, it was fairly late in the match where I can't remember who he was tracking down, but he made a very long recovery run and came through with a tackle, which was nice.
Yeah, there was one bit that sticks in my head was I can't remember who it was, but they played the ball down the right and it just looked like that's going out for a goal kick. But the speed he got on it, and he whips in a great cross as well. It's just, I'm really looking forward to seeing him playing more and more matches. It's good competition to have at right back between Fisher and Chris. I'm over the moon the fact that we've got those two there, because I think we shouldn't struggle now. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, and do you have to me? He can play a wing back role too. I think both of them probably can, if we decided to go with a different look versus the 4-back.
Yeah.
They've always, Fisher has always been exposed defensively. I mean, that was before he got injured in 2018. He was both playing above himself, but also at times being responsible for every goal we were giving up, in one way or another. And that's the risk of having these players in the 4-back is you're a lot more vulnerable when they make an error. But I think that was probably a small bright spot in this match. We've seen both of them play well.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, as we've already mentioned, Pepe Higuain scores again, and what I liked about that goal was how quick he was to react to that misplaced pass back to the keeper, and the composure that he had to take it just to the side and then slot it in. I think he's left-footed naturally, isn't he?
Yeah, and he hit it to his right.
Yeah, so
maybe the overall bright spot of this tournament, other than like Schadenfreude of the Red Bulls, is Schadenfreude of having Columbus supporters have to watch Pipa in another jersey playing well and getting goals, because they love that guy for good reason, and it must just really stick in their craw as well as they've played, to still see him ending his career somewhere else.
Yeah, it's I'm amazed how we've been able to get him, and not just in a player role, but in a player coach role as well. I think that's a good sign to have his experience, his knowledge of the game, and to be able to pass that down onto the youngsters like Griffin Yao, like Kevin Paredes and Moses Nyman.
And hopefully next month have his brother.
I mean,
needing a striker.
That would be the Higuains.
How old is his brother now? 30.
31,
he's 2 years.
32?
That young? I thought he's two. People's 35?
Yeah, he's 35. I'm just going to have a quick Google.
Yeah.
Let's have a quick.
Gonzalo's 33, maybe? 32?
Gonzalo Higuain he's 32, is it? He's 33 in December this year.
Okay. So, I mean, still at the MLS level is,
yeah,
a couple years in the legs probably for a player like that.
Yeah. What made me feel old there was the fact that I'm only 4 months younger than him.
I'll be 41 on Monday, man. I'm now reached the point where all the players are younger than me. So it's maybe some goalkeeper. I think Christian Gomez just retired at 46 or something, or DC United legend. But otherwise, it's right. I'm past it. My dreams of my career are dead.
All right. Next game. The game that I woke up at 2:30 in the morning for. The Montreal Impact game. Now, I was hoping for a bit more, considering this, in my eyes, was a must-win game. Draw would have been fine.
Probably gets us through, yeah.
Probably gets us through, but it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
And a win would have guaranteed us advancement into the knockout stages. And a win by 2 clear goals would have topped the group. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. It's simple and it's on a plate. Because Montreal have been awful. And Thierry Henry generally hasn't done well so far as a coach. His Monaco record was pretty poor, to say the least. Granted, he inherited a squad that was just all over the place, but he still didn't do anything there, and he hasn't had the best of starts at the Impact.
Well, and he takes a risk here, right? He's been playing through CONCACAF Champions League in the beginning with a 5-back, 3-back, 5-back, but specific 5. You're playing deep. The wing backs sit very deep, and how he's been playing so far. And he goes to a 4-back in this game, frankly, because he thinks United probably doesn't pose any threat. So yeah, and it proves to be so. But he wants to get in a situation where he's getting some of his attacking players a little higher on the field, specifically Taider, and to that kind of half space behind the defensive midfielder, and it works. I mean, to a certain extent, they don't look comfortable defensively at all moments in that 4-back, but we don't really ask very many questions of them, especially not until the final 15, 20 minutes. Even
then, that wasn't really that many questions being asked.
Yeah, well, at that point they're already up. They can defend with everybody. We come out and we press for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah,
was it about the first 10 minutes?
First 5 minutes, because I remember tweeting about the best opening 5 minutes of the tournament so far for the club, and then the next 5 minutes it went downhill.
Yeah, and then but it was very clear it was a setup of we're going to try to press out of the gate. We're going to try to nick a goal, maybe create an error early on, and then we don't have the legs for it, so we're going to pull back. But they didn't just pull back to a mid-block, or they pulled back to the top of their 18.
Yeah.
And for the next, last especially 30 minutes of the half, Montreal is just passing the ball around the top of the 18 and taking cracks when they can. One of them obviously turns into a deflected goal, but we sat way deep.
It was. I think there was. Is it Shep Manning?
Shep
was commentating.
Yeah, Shep Messing was doing the color on the national game.
And I think there was, because we had that commentary over here in the UK, and there was a comment where he was just saying, "We've got 8 players behind the ball in the first half." It's like,
yeah, it's baffling. It's baffling, especially when you don't. The way they were set up is not set up to counter, right? Like, I get there are ways when you feel you're at a talent deficit. You have injuries, right? We have Flores is out. Kamara is not able to start. You feel you're at a talent deficit, but we still weren't set up to counter, right? And counter, to sit so deep, you have to counter quickly, and you have to counter with numbers. That's the only way it makes sense in that situation. And we never showed that either.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, I don't, I don't know where to go with it. I'm not sure why. Again, you don't have some of the younger players in there to be able to show some of that speed, because both Paredes and they're they've got some speed, and we're just we're not putting the players in the position to actually attack even when they get the chance. Um, oh man,
And let's start off by looking at the lineup. So let's get it up on my phone. So our lineup, classic backline: Hamid in goal, Mora, Birnbaum, Briant, and Chris Aduiachem started this game. Then you've got Canassa Moreno as your DMs. You got Gressel and Assad on the wings. Not going to complain too much about that. That's absolutely fine. You've then got Felipe, who's traditionally a DM in the attacking mid role. That's unusual. But again, I thought he sometimes likes to get forward. He could possibly do something. He might nick a long shot or something like that. But the strangest inclusion in this lineup, Segura up top.
and
Who was, I thought, a bit strange.
we've seen that. I mean, we've seen him do that before, right? I
He
mean,
did.
like Ben has started him in the 9 slot.
He did it last year against the Impact. Exactly the same.
Yeah,
And it's just, Segura, when we signed him, and I was watching the guys over at the Tried and True podcast, the post-game show, he was initially signed as a central midfielder. He's then moved out onto the wing, and he can do an okay job out there. He hustles, but he's not a striker. He had that opportunity in the first half where he moved into a fantastic position, looked to attack the near post, but held his run back. The ball was played back to him, and then he just skies it. So, a normal striker would have at least hit the target. Or you'd like to think they would have hit the target on that one. It was just... It was frustrating. And you could tell we were playing with 6 midfielders on the pitch and 0 strikers, because there was nothing up top. When the ball was getting out to the wing, there was just nothing there. And you look at the stats on the game. We had 8. I think I'm just gonna have.
I'm trying to find the heat map too.
Yeah, it was 18 crosses we had. 18 crosses into the box. Surely one of those must have hit a striker, you would have thought. We've had 12 attempts to Montreal's 7.
But it's more. I mean, it's more than it's not the. They were, what I'd call this year LA Galaxy crosses. Like, they're not crosses with purpose. They're crosses against a set defense.
Yeah.
Who's already like they're not an early hit cross. Frankly, what Julian Gressel was brought in to do, right?
Yeah.
How did he make his living in Atlanta? He made his living on the run, hitting early crosses behind the back line. We didn't see any of those. Gressel, I believe, went out in the 50 between the 50 and 51st minute. Yeah. Early.
Yeah. That frustrated the heck out of me when he went off at that early in the second half, because I thought we've just wasted one of our stoppages.
Right. I mean, that's just a great example. If you are looking at a team that's going to struggle to score in the tactical sense, on a restart, he's going to be one of your dangerous players, right? Yeah. He can send in a nice ball, and we pulled him off. Flores is already not playing.
Yeah.
We're putting ourselves, behind the 8 ball again. I'm just the substitution pattern that always confuses me. But again, I just didn't see a plan from them to say, when this ball turns over, this is how we're going to go, and quickly try to put pressure on the Impact. They just didn't do it.
It was the story of the tournament, wasn't it? It was just like there was nothing to unsettle any defenses. There was nothing. There was no flair. There was no control in that midfield. The back line looked a little bit ropey, which is unusual for us. I thought, despite Briant scoring, that was the only thing he did well in this tournament. I hate to say it, because I do like Fred quite a lot, but he didn't have a good tournament.
No, and I like Fred too, and Fred frankly had an amazing 2019.
Yeah, no, he outperformed, I think,
You know,
anything by anyone's
I'll go
standards.
back to like the Football Manager. If you are looking at your roster and you see a Fred Briand having a great year at 33,
Yeah,
he was 33 last year, you move for another defender
yeah.
immediately
Oh yeah,
in the next year because there is no way that him and Birdbaum repeat what they were able to do in 2019 together
yeah,
at another year older. It's the chances are so low of that repeating itself,
yeah,
and we weren't able to get any moves done, and acting like, yeah, well, maybe we'll figure it out later. Maybe we can skate. I mean, that's the other side of kind of the Dave Casper specials is he gets a year or two out of got players that you're like, man, that was really a steal, and
yeah,
then we keep them a year too long,
yeah.
and they fall off the cliff. And we could be seeing that here with Fred Briand. I mean, the way he played in this tournament, um, he struggled. I mean, he struggled in many facets of the game. Um,
You look at in that game against the Impact, just before their goal,
he almost
he
knocks it in. Yeah,
yeah he
right
almost
before that.
hacks it into his own net, and then off that resulting corner, the ball comes out. It looks to be safe, but there's a nice it's a pot shot.
Uh,
It's just a hit and hope. He sticks his leg out and deflects it past Bill, who couldn't do really much of anything about that. And it's just it was just a 5 minutes of terror for for Fred.
at the end of this one, I think I don't know how you feel getting a little distance from it, but it was about as negative as I've seen. And not even negative, not angry, just resigned as the fan base, the hardcores. I, I mean, I'll say it. It is time for new coaching. It is time, frankly, no. It is time for a new
Yeah,
soccer side of the organization at DC United. We need a restart um, from general manager on down
yeah,
on the soccer side of the organization. And we need a project. We need a project. Don't, I'm so beyond the apologists.
yeah,
I mean, I would ask you. I mean, I don't know where you're at, but like, I cannot look at Orlando and San Jose and these teams that have clearly better coaches
yeah,
and say that they have more talent than we do, or that their organization is somehow better positioned to succeed. Right? I'm not
yeah.
comparing us to LAFC and Seattle, and
No,
like that's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing
they're next level.
right. They're at that next level that we're not even close to yet. But why we can't see that coaching matters in this league and we're unable to take that next step, unlike clubs who have far less talent and are overachieving,
Yeah,
and we manage to underachieve,
yeah,
consistently here in Washington.
yeah. It's been a tough decade. Let's put it that way. Because you look at what the first decade, absolutely brilliant. Couldn't ask for anything more in terms of success on the pitch. And then you look at the last 10 years, and what have we got to show for it, apart from the US Open Cup?
One, but there's a difference. People did, if you would ask me in 2017, what do you feel about Ben? And my
Yeah,
answer was, who are we going to hire? Like, nobody would take the DC United job in
yeah,
2016, 17. It was a terrible job. You could not win in it.
yeah,
Now we can hire really with the right pitch. We saw it with Wayne Rooney.
yeah,
We could hire a world's worth of talent here. There's a good stadium in a global city. We have a second team. We have an academy base in Washington that produces talent in spite of itself.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it really does. I mean,
yeah,
we have players coming through without one of the top academies setups. Um,
yeah,
you know, I can't imagine what we would do with Philadelphia's investment in Washington. For as much talent is there here. The building blocks are here in Washington. this is a job worth taking for an ambitious individual. And I mean, I'd be on the phone tomorrow to Chris Henderson in Seattle and say, leave that assistant GM job and come take the attempt take a GM. That's what I'd be looking at, players like that. I'd be trying to poach Freddie Juarez from Real Salt Lake, a young, ambitious coach that really seems to have a good handle on things, and be like, hey, come somewhere where you can actually have some resources. And I really think it's time for that. And I don't feel like this season is clearly not rash, right? We've had this set up for too long. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. We need change, and it needs to be pretty complete change, I think.
Yeah, and as tough as change can be, it's usually for the better.
Well, in MLS, it's not. You're not 36 months away.
Mm.
You're 6 months away.
Yeah.
In MLS, like you can very quickly make up the gap. There's so many ways to bring in new players, and this cupboard isn't bare here. Like, we're not dealing with, again, this isn't the 2017 team with old men and no talent underneath them. Yeah. There's players that have succeeded many places, right? Birnbaum is a quality starter, right? Gressel is a very good player in MLS that has produced real numbers, right? Yeah. Flores is a player, if you look at his tier, right, against, he's being brought in along guys with like Ariane and Alan Polito and guys that have succeeded in Mexico, who have already started to show that they can be very good here. He is a player that can contribute probably at a very high level. We need competent leadership to put them in positions to succeed. Yes, we need to get deeper, but the cupboard isn't bare here at all.
There is a roster here with the right management, with the right tactics, that could hit the upper echelons of the conference.
Yeah.
But it's, at the moment, it feels like we're putting square pegs in round holes. It's just not fitting. And I know we've spoke about what we've done on the Football Manager game, but there definitely needs to be some kind of change. And I don't know whether it's because Ben Olsen's been at the club for so long that they want to do any harm to his status at the club. But I think we can still have him at the club because I think as a man manager, he's one of the better people at it. Again, it was something that I was listening to the Tried and True podcast. He's never lost a dressing room.
He hasn't, and that's why Ben is not a terrible manager. He's a mediocre manager, which is hard. It's like a terrible manager is Anthony Hudson last year. You just can those guys. They lose all their games. Like they're terrible. Everyone gets angry at them, and you fire
that they're bad.
Right? It's Kurt would have happened with Kurt Onalfo before Ben. Like we're having with Kurt Onalfo, frankly, multiple times in MLS. Yeah. But it goes downhill so quickly, and there's never any high points. Yeah. Ben, because I don't like when I read that he's a quote fraud. He's not a fraud. He's as real as you get, and as a man, he's an excellent person. Yeah. Right. And I will not the name, but one of the senior MLS analysts that you'd probably kind of recognize, once made the comment is and that's why he should be in a club ambassador role. That's who he is. He is a man who lives and breathes this club. He loves the city. He's the guy that shows up at DC Scores events when nobody's looking, just because he believes in being there. I don't want to treat this no, I don't. I think he's an amazing individual, but results and being a head coach are not just about that. And it's time to don't fire him. Yeah, give him another role, play him a salary. Yeah. But it's time for us to move on. I think from the overall soccer side leadership at DC United.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's So you've spoken about general manager wise. As head coach, who would you get in now? It is a bit. It is a tricky one.
But I mean, I talked about general manager. Yeah, yes. What I the first thing I would do is if I'm the owner, I don't hire the coach. If I'm Jason let me in spot, I don't hire the coach. I hire a general manager, and the general manager hires the coach together in consultation, right, with the ownership. But I make that pitch for Chris Henderson in Seattle, and I say, come, you've done great work, working together with Blogger Way, like come run your own franchise, build something here, and then you let them build from the ground up. They pick their system, right? They hire like the coach they want to bring in, and you don't dictate those things. That's the first move I'd make. But to insist that like we're going to have a style of play and we're going to commit to bringing in players that fit that system. And we're going to commit to it over a series of multiple years, and we're going to use the other resources we have, Academy, Loudon, to build towards that vision and sell somebody quality on that. And I think with an MLS quote general manager, somebody like I think Henderson's a great candidate. I think you could find others. You can hire. I think it's very possible to hire a foreign coach who's maybe a very good tactician to work under somebody who knows the roster rules, right? And can teach them about how we have to bring in players. And somebody who knows minute one that they have to be realistic about how you can bring in players here. But I think there's lots of coaches that could see the United States as a very interesting challenge because of that nature, that like they're not going to get beat just because the other team outspends them. That's not going to happen here. They're going to get to show how good a coach, how good a manager they are here. And we can make that sale. If I think we have the kind of infrastructure around it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's how I would pitch it to someone about MLS in general. It is a level playing field. Grant, you've got your DPs who are obviously not subject to the salary cap, but you've got the fact that you've got that level playing field. You've still got the super draft, which I kind of enjoy seeing what happens with that, even though it seems to be tailing off quite a bit now. But it's an exciting league. Anyone can beat anyone, as we've seen in this tournament. It truly is a league for managers to really test their mettle and show that they're actually a really good manager, not just someone who sits behind a load of cash. Pep Guardiola.
Exactly. Pep was. I don't want to argue Pep. Pep is.
I would argue if he came to the club.
He's an excellent manager. But there's different skills, right? And like in Europe, like there's skills about how to manage a super club, which is a lot about ego management, right?
Yeah.
And there's how to manage a mid-table club, and that's a lot more about tactics, right? And then there's how to manage a bottom-table club, which is about how ugly can you make. But MLS that doesn't have that. You don't have to make a choice based just on resources. The other arrow in our quiver, if we move now, is the World Cup in 2026 here. There are managers that would probably have the ambition of managing the United States at a home World Cup in 2026. And I bet if you came in and said, hey, you can manage here for a few years and really put yourself, and if you win, you can put yourself in that conversation, Roberto Martinez, or like
that would be a good call.
But a man who's worked in the United States, who knows the United States, who probably harbors ambitions of maybe coaching the U.S. national teams and sees himself in that role. There are managers of that type that normally you couldn't sign, but because of the World Cup and that spotlight and where it could put you, you could make that pitch now. You can't 2 years from now, and you can't maybe 4 years in the past. But I think there are other factors that point towards this to be a good time for change. that you could attract interesting candidates from, I think, a variety of backgrounds.
You've got, I think the big thing would be the fact that we've got probably, because obviously we still don't know yet, time. You've got time to get to know the squad. You've got time to put your stamp on the team and your style of play. That would be something else I would pitch towards a potential candidate to take over the club, because this time that we've got at the moment is not like any other time that we'll hopefully ever have again. But
Yeah.
it's,
And if there's a time,
opportunity to, I don't even know how we're gonna get match fitness, because the tournament obviously still goes on for another couple of weeks. Then we don't know whether we're going to be able to play games again. So how do we get the match fitness? How do we then improve the style of play?
But this is also an opportunity in the transfer market.
Yeah.
MLS clubs are backed by big money. This is not good for the business side. It will not kill them. It is going to kill clubs around the world. There are going to be quality players on discount this window and the next window because clubs have to raise cash. And the question is, do we at DC United, do we see it as an opportunity to really upgrade and come out stronger and make some, frankly, like would be capital investments? Or are we going to, hunker down and get in the little turtle shell and try to just endure it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we are equipped for the first one, but I see that too. I think there's going to be a chance to get some good deals on players if you're willing to spend a little bit of money.
Yeah. I don't know whether, did you see the post-match press conference with Ben Olsen after the Impact game?
Yeah. He was not real happy with Charlie Bain. Although I thought he asked.
That was an absolute fine
Thank you
question.
if you were listening, Charlie, at any point. Yeah. That was exactly the question I would ask.
Yeah.
So it was completely fair, but yeah, he didn't like to hear it.
No, he didn't. And I thought his response was, I hate to say it, but petulant. It was a bit. He threw a bit of a strop.
Yeah, he was angry. He was angry. He was angry about probably being knocked out. He was angry about how the whole tournament went down. He was angry about not having. I'm sure he felt like come July he was going to have players that were going to come in, and that was part of their discussion.
Yeah,
and that didn't happen. Right, the transfer window got pushed back, and the craziness, but. I'll point to another club. If we had what Colorado just went through, they did not advance, right? They struggled at times, but you know what? They scored some nice goals. They went out and tried to play. They played their young players.
Yeah,
I'd feel much better about the position we were in moving forward than where we're at, having done none of those things.
Yeah, and I think he pointed out that he wanted to try and make a couple of signings as well.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
Well, we know there was there was the defender from Amiens, right?
Yes.
That we were having trouble getting in the winter window because they were in a relegation battle, but now he's in a situation where that player is probably free to move.
Yeah. There's plenty of players who are now out of contract because they didn't want to play in that extended period in a lot of European leagues. Now we can pick up on a free right now.
Exactly. There's real opportunity right now, and it kills me that if you ask me, we're not ready to take advantage of it as a club, and this is a time to grow. It really is. Like when do you buy stock in the stock market? When they're low,
Exactly.
When things are bad, you buy at the bottom. You don't buy in the mid part of the top. And this is the bottom, at least in the soccer transfer market of the last, multiple decades. It's probably as low as it's been.
Yeah. I mean, as a feeling right now, do you feel it's worse than the position we were in at the end of 2013?
No. It is not good, but it is, again, I think the the vitals of this club are good. We have our own stadium. It is in the center of the city. We have a B team, playing in USL in Loudoun. We have, you know, an academy set up. We have, frankly, the business health of the club is much better than it, you know, has ever been. We had sponsorship dollars. And that's another whole discussion with Eddie Bush League, which I'm kind of heartbroken about.
Yeah.
But we are in such a better position than we were in 2013 about the future. Those fundamentals are good. We're not taking advantage of the good fundamentals to turn them into a strong club yet.
Yeah. It still feels sore for me. I mean, I don't know whether that's just because I was up so flipping early. I think it's now starting to hit me, the tiredness. So I'm just being like,
I mean, you know, it ended at 12:40, you know, Eastern time. It wasn't exactly, you know, when your daughter wakes you up at 6 a.m. You know, it was late, and
it was.
It just wanting, you know, like I didn't even want to go on Twitter. It was like, just turn it off and go to bed.
Yeah.
And apathy is worse. Again, about this, there's the problems with the on the field, but there's also problems with what happens to the off the field because of the on the field. If you're not even pissing people off anymore, right?
Yeah.
And they're just turning off and they're saying this isn't worth watching. That's the bigger problem. Yeah. This team isn't worth watching, even when they win too much of the time.
Yeah.
And the big clubs in MLS, it's not just that LAFC and Atlanta and stuff in these years have won. They've looked good doing it. They've been exciting. Even when LAFC got upset by Seattle last year. Why do they inspire such devotion? Because they're pretty. And Bob Bradley is committed to playing exciting soccer. Period. And win or lose. That's really, I think, it's attitude. And here, I don't know what we're committed to.
No. As I said before, I would love to see us lose, but lose in style. If we got battered 4-0, but we showed a bit of fight and a bit of passion, we made it go a bit.
You can lose playing your system. Lose playing your system and playing hard and learning it and building towards something. And so we go through the stats and we try to, like, if I sit down and point again, if I watch a Peter Vermes managed match, or if I watch a Caleb Porter pitch, and I don't think, I think very highly of Vermes, but I actually don't think Porter's, you know, all that. But I know that I'm going to be able to discern their system, and I'm going to be able to pick out the movements that they're trying to do to open up the other team, whether they're or not they're successful. We can't do that in match breakdown with DC United.
There is nothing.
It's not there, and that is so bad. Like we're just so far from that era of give it to the ex-player and have them, Jason Kreis, you know, Peter Vermes, Mike Petke, fight, and motivate. Like it's not. The league's beyond that now. There's the talent coming in. It's not just better talent. It's more tactically sophisticated talent. And the league has passed us by in that regard.
Yeah. So I think we can both agree that we need big changes.
Yeah.
To say the least.
And I think we'd agree that it probably should happen sooner than later.
Yeah.
That we shouldn't sit back and say, well, like, are we even going to play a season? I think this is the time we could probably actually take advantage of this lull to make some changes properly, instead of having to do it in a hurried fashion.
And the other side to that as well is, if we do make these changes, people, if it doesn't work for the first 6 months until the end of the year, you've got the mentality side of things. People will go, well, he's a new manager. He's just trying to set up his style of play, and he'll then have a full pre-season, and then it'll start off in 2021.
Yeah.
The whole mentality changes.
Well, patience has never been a problem here, right?
Oh,
like,
no.
Patience has not been like, we haven't been firing managers every year and a half. No. Like that's not been the problem in Washington. Right? I don't. The ownership has shown it is willing to give lots of time. and be patient. So I don't worry about patience. I worry about not being decisive enough.
Yeah. There's patience, and then there's a lack of cutting edge.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
well, that has been a good chat about breaking down the MLS's back tournament from a DC United point of view. Um, I think I think we'll leave it there for now.
Right.
I think we both agree we need the big change. We need it sooner rather than later. It was a terrible tournament. There's no other way about it. No wins, 2 ties, goals that were lucky, no clear-cut chances, outplayed in every aspect.
And I think we can agree. Is it was a fair reflection of where this club is right now?
Yeah.
I don't think it was unfair, or it didn't flatter us, nor did it I think it probably is what we really look like in the mirror.
Yeah, it is. As normal, I'd like to end the show in the usual fashion. So, James, I know over on Twitter you can be found at SE President, isn't it?
That's right, correct. SE
That's
President.
right. How is the Screaming Eagles going at the moment? Obviously, in this weird time, what things have you got going on?
Man, it's strange. We worked really hard. I spent a lot of time trying to get a drive-through set up for match viewing.
Of course, yes.
Which circumstances conspired against us with these matches. First 2 matches moving, and they kept telling me we were going to do it for the knockouts, and well, there were no knockouts. So that was a little bit frustrating. It's a tough time, right? I mean, you don't get to come together and see people you want to do. We're working. You're involved with the I Can't Breathe painting on the field at Audi Field. We're working on a project with several groups to paint some stadium statements, kind of against hate and for tolerance and inclusion on the steps, the supporter section we're working on right now with the club, and hopefully we'll have some movement there soon on that. But again, trying to take advantage where we can of this time to maybe make some bigger statements and take advantage of set that marker down for the long term.
Yeah. No, I would look forward to seeing that, especially in the supporters section. I just hope I can get back out there soon, because I need to get back to DC.
Well, but they said you come here, the problem is you can't get home. So
that's it. Yeah, I can get home.
Oh, you can get home. I couldn't come visit you. That's the
I've got to quarantine for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
When I come back, that's the tricky state. But yeah, hopefully we can get out there soon and see you guys again, because both times that I've been, it's been a fantastic experience and absolutely loved it. There's no other way around it. So do go and follow James over on Twitter at SE President, and do follow Screaming Eagles, because that's how you can keep up to date with whatever they're doing. If you're not following me on Twitter somehow, how would you get to this show? I don't know. But head over onto Twitter at DC United Kingdom. There is the membership on there, because we do have a little group going on where we chat about all those games that we've just talked about, and hopefully some future games this year. You never know. We might be lucky. Just head over to dcunitedkingdom.com. The link is in the description. There's merch, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube. I'll head over this way. Have a look at that. You can get yourself some of that. And we're over on Facebook and Instagram at DC United Kingdom FC. And until the next time, if there is going to be another match this year, Vamos United.
Vamos United.